He's emerged as UPA's go-to man in every crisis. He took over the Home Ministry in the aftermath of the Mumbai terror attacks, and after a highly successful stint there, he moved to the Finance Ministry to shore up India's economy. To talk about all this and more, we have Mr. P. Chidambaram, India's Finance Minister. Mr. Chidambaram, there's one question that I must ask at the very beginning, and that's a question everybody wants to know. Why are you not contesting this election?
This question will arise only in Kali Yuga. If people contest election after election, you and others will say, why can't he make way for someone?
But you're too young to make way for someone.
If you don't contest an election after 8 elections, you will say, why are you making way for someone? So these are questions which cannot be answered, but I've explained why I did not wish to contest. I've contested 8 elections over 30 years. I want to spend the remaining years of my life in doing a few things that I want to do. Among them are travel, reading, writing, and now I've found another passion. There are some things which can be done at the grassroots level, which can only be done if I stay in my constituency for periods of 10 or 15 days together. I also want to reconnect with my friends in the world of Tamil literature.
Is this sannyas from politics?
No, not at all. I'm an active politician. I will remain an active politician.
You're not disassociating yourself from your party or from active politics?
Oh, not at all. I'm the most involved campaigner in Tamil Nadu. The campaign in my constituency has been running for the last 25 days.
You know what your critics are saying, especially your opponents in the BJP? They say you've opted out, you've taken the easy way out because you were scared that you might not win.
Well, I have lost an election in the past. That didn't scare me away after elections. And I've looked at these critics. I found that none of them has contested even a panchayat election in his or her life.
No, one of them is now contesting.
Now, I said none of them has contested.
Yeah, he's now contesting.
The one who's contesting, I think, made a fair and moderate statement.
Your home state, Tamil Nadu, the Congress appears to be out on a limb. You're without allies. How did it go wrong?
That is unfortunate. I don't know how it went wrong, to quote you. It's unfortunate that we could not revive the alliance with the DMK and a couple of other parties. I think the DMK is also beginning to realize that perhaps it was a mistake not to have revived the alliance with the Congress.
So what happens now? Is there some, yesterday we had Mr. Karnanidhi say that he's willing to forgive and forget, and in the post-poll scenario, maybe there is room for some kind of arrangement. Do you believe that pre-poll, you say there's some realization, a pre-poll, do you believe there's any room for some kind of adjustment or friendly contests?
Well, that's not something I'm competent to answer. Nominations in Tamil Nadu begin on the 29th of March. We are today on the 27th. That question can only be answered by the top leaders of both parties. But I doubt if there is time at this stage to revive an alliance.
Mr. Chidambaram, I'm sure you realize that you're the opposition, especially the BJP's prime ministerial candidate, Mr. Modi's favorite whipping boy.
Mm-hmm.
He says he holds you primarily responsible for all that ails the Indian economy currently.
He doesn't know much about India's economy. I was not finance minister between the 1st of December 2008 and the 31st of July 2012. That makes it nearly 4 years I was not finance minister. I returned to the finance ministry only on the 1st of August 2012. I've been there now at the end of this month about 20 months. In the 20 months, we have pulled back the economy. Fiscal deficit, current account deficit, WPI inflation, CPI inflation, reserves, the value of the rupee against the dollar. But these are matters on which Mr. Modi does not speak, so I don't know how much he knows about these matters.
He claims that once he comes to power, the rupee will be back to 40 against the dollar.
He will regret that statement.
Why?
Well, ask any student of economics, he'll tell you that if the rupee strengthens beyond the limit, if it is overvalued, it will affect exports. In fact, the currency must reflect its true value, which is why we've got a measure called the REER, Real Effective Exchange Rate. The REER should at any time be 100 plus or minus 5. At the moment, I think it's within that range, which is why there is no concern among exporters or importers. But that is something which he will learn, provided he has an opportunity to learn. But you are assuming he will have the opportunity to learn.
You believe he doesn't, that situation will not arise?
Well, I think many people in his party are beginning to question that. I think Mr. Advani, Ms. Sushma Swaraj, Mr. Jaswant Singh, and many others are beginning to question whether he should have the opportunity to lead the government in the unlikely event of the party, the BJP, coming to power.
So, your confidence is at odds with the general sentiment in the party, because if from what we gather, I've been covering your party, and from what morale is an all-time low, and everybody paints a very dismal future for the Congress party. Do you share that view?
No, I don't. I don't know who paints a dismal picture. I saw the release of the manifesto function yesterday on television. I was in my constituency. I saw the pictures later in the evening. I thought that the Congress president presented a picture of confidence and assurance. I didn't get that impression.
Yeah, the Congress president does. But if you look at, there are not too many. I mean, earlier we saw hordes of people fighting for Congress tickets. Now there are not enough takers, apparently.
No, that's not right. In Tamil Nadu, where we have no alliance, every seat has been bitterly contested. There are at least half a dozen applicants for every seat. And they announced 4 tickets 3 days ago. And I have a spate of messages from applicants saying, please change the candidate and make me the candidate.
So there are many who believe that the Congress will be at an all-time low, that your tally could go down below 100.
Well, I see. I can't comment on your wishes.
No, that's certainly not my wish. But this is the
As I said, we are going round and round. I don't make poll predictions. We will lose some, we will win some.
Assuming for argument's sake that you're not in a position to form the government, then what is the Congress party going to do? What will be your main priority? To prevent Mr. Narendra Modi from becoming PM? And in that case, will you support some third front?
These are questions which I can't answer.
So you're a very senior member of you're a member of the core committee.
No, these are questions which will be answered by the leadership.
You're a part of the leadership, sir.
Well, thank you, but I don't think so. If we don't have the numbers, of course we will sit in the opposition. Now, who will form the government? I don't know. If 250 members of the new parliament, new Lok Sabha, do not belong to the BJP or the Congress, obviously someone from among the 250 will make an effort to form a government. And at that time, the Congress party will weigh its options and take a decision. I don't think anything is certain. Please look back on the history of 2004 and 2009 and try to temper your certainties.
Sir, a lot of people believe that the 3 M's, that Mamta, Mayawati and Ms. Jayalalitha will hold the key if the 250 get a chance to form the government. And which of the 3 would you think is most capable of being PM?
Well, I think Ms. Mamta Banerjee has made it clear that she will not support Mr. Narendra Modi or the BJP. It's very unlikely that Ms. Mayawati will support the BJP or Mr. Modi, because I think they represent different constituencies and different social interests. They are antagonistic to each other. And leaders can't ignore the social interests they represent. It's very likely that Ms. Jayalalitha, and I call her party the B team of the BJP, will support Mr. Narendra Modi. So
She hasn't aligned with them,
but it's not correct to say that the three will work together. It's quite possible that the three whom you named may not work together. They may work in different directions.
Of the regional players, you interact with all of them, both in your capacity as Home Minister and as Finance Minister. Which one of them do you think has it in him to fill that role?
To be Prime Minister? I mean, I'm afraid with great respect to them, and I don't mean this, I don't mean to run anyone down, with great respect to them. I don't think any of the three whom you name qualifies to be Prime Minister of India. It's too big a job. It's a job that requires much greater experience, much greater understanding of India.
Do you believe Rahul Gandhi has it in him to be Prime Minister of India?
I think so.
He has the understanding and the experience?
I think so. I think he will be quite an effective Prime Minister. But let me add, he will also learn on the job. He's been learning over the last year and a half, after he became Vice President of the party. But I think he has the world view, he has the broad understanding and the willingness to learn to be Prime Minister of a Congress-led government.
So, does the country need somebody who will learn on the job, or somebody who has the required experience? Being Prime Minister of a country like
Everybody
India,
has to learn on the job. Suppose Mr. Modi becomes Prime Minister, he has to learn on the job. He can't run the Indian cabinet in the manner in which he runs his Gujarat cabinet. I've heard horror stories about the way the Gujarat cabinet
so
is
he
run.
says he has a 56-inch chest and that will take care of everything.
Well, this is not a wrestling arena. This is the cabinet of India. Is he going to wrestle with his cabinet ministers with his 56-inch chest? If that is his approach, I'm glad I won't be in his cabinet.
You know, there are many who believe that India requires a strong, decisive, assertive leadership, and he fills that role.
Strong means what? What is strength? Physical strength? Strong means strong in convictions, strong in empathy for the poor, strong in knowledge of how the world economy functions.
And you believe he doesn't have that?
I don't think so. Anyway, he has not given me any evidence of his understanding of the world economy or Indian economics.
So his supporters say he's done wonders. Look at the way they talk of the Gujarat model.
I will hold a press conference on the 31st. Well, I can't share with you now because I want to share it with the entire media.
You can use us to share it with the entire world.
Well, that won't be fair to your friends. That won't be fair to your friends. The Gujarat model is largely puffery. I'm not saying Gujarat has not done well. So has Tamil Nadu, so has Maharashtra, so have many other states. In fact, on many metrics, other states score over Gujarat. We are not underestimating what has been achieved in Gujarat. But to say that the Gujarat model is the answer to India's problems and every other state has been poorly run or poorly governed, and the only person who can govern India is Mr. Modi, I think that is too much to swallow.
No, they point to the fact that corporate India is already buoyed at the prospect that somebody like that Mr. Modi might become India's Prime Minister. They say the business world is agog with enthusiasm. They point to all these markers, to these indicators which suggest that business India is waiting for somebody like him.
Corporate India said they were waiting for someone like Rajiv Gandhi in 1984. Corporate India said they were waiting for someone like Dr. Manmohan Singh in 1991. Corporate India does not decide who should be the Prime Minister of India. In the case of Mr. Modi, I suspect that corporate India, which has its share of crony capitalists, would naturally warm to Mr. Modi.
Why do you say that? Do you believe he'll favor particular industrialists?
There is enough evidence to show that the Gujarat model is crony capitalism. People have made specific statements, pointed out specific instances in land acquisition, land allocation, giving out contracts. Specific cases have been pointed out. Now, that is not the same as saying corruption. Cronyism is not necessarily corruption, but cronyism is not being fair or transparent.
So ironically, these are the same charges which are laid at your government's door. Corruption or favouring in people out of turn.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Any party which has been in government for 10 years will face such charges. And we must be prepared to take it on our chin. We must be prepared to answer the charges. I mean, we can't duck charges.
How do you answer to the charge that this is perhaps the most corrupt government in India's history?
But that's, as I said, sedulously built myth. There have been some charges of corruption in the allocation of 2G spectrum. But those are very narrow charges. The larger charge has never been established, and even the CBI didn't buy into the CNAG's argument that there was a loss of 1,76,000 crore rupees. Please read the CBI's charge sheet. On coal, the entire set of allegations has collapsed. The CBI, I'm told, is closing many cases on the ground that there's no corruption. Please understand that if there has been a policy, assume it is flawed. If there has been a process, assume it is flawed. The conclusion you must arrive at is, it was a flawed policy, it was a flawed process, and therefore the government was incompetent. That's not the same as saying a flawed policy and a flawed process must necessarily mean there was corruption.
Inflation is along with corruption, cited as one of the two reasons why the Congress party finds itself in the situation that it is.
I've answered you on corruption. Let's talk about inflation now. I said this in my interim budget speech. What was inflation when I returned to the finance ministry on the 1st of August? What is inflation now? Wholesale price inflation has halved. CPI inflation is a shade above 7%. It used to be 12%. Why don't you read what analysts, rating agencies and economists say? Grudgingly, they have now conceded that inflation has been tamed in the last 6 months. And that's what I said. It will take me a year and a half working with the Reserve Bank of India to bring down inflation. Therefore, you should go back and ask the question, why did inflation get out of control? Inflation got out of control because we had a growing fiscal deficit. We had high international commodity prices, particularly in oil, and we had a huge current account deficit, which means we were importing more than we were exporting, and we were paying at these huge high international prices.
But will this situation ever come where we start importing less oil, because our oil consumption just seems to be growing and growing, and there's nowhere there's...
Oil consumption will grow in a developing country. In fact, consumption of oil is a sign of growth. The point is, do you have oil of your own, or do you have to import oil? If God has blessed us with oil, we should explore and produce more oil. If God has not blessed us with oil, we have to import oil and gas. And we have to import it only at international prices.
So you know what Mr. Modi says about him? He says to run India's economy in an efficient manner, you don't need to be Harvard educated. You need to have a feel from the ground.
Oh, I entirely agree. You don't have to be Harvard educated, but you have to be educated in economics, isn't it?
And you don't believe Mr. Modi's...
You have to educate yourself in economics. I'm not questioning his education. I'm only saying you have to educate yourself in economics. I'm by training a lawyer. I'm not an economist. I wish Mr. Modi will sit across you and answer the very same questions that you're putting to me. He has not allowed a single media person to put him a single question on economics. So how do the people of India judge what his stand on economic issues are. It's like saying Obama and Romney will debate, but neither of them will answer any questions on economics.
No, he says my track record. My track record speaks for
If his
itself.
track record is so eloquent, what prevents him from coming before a media conference or before a selected group of journalists or before a person like you and answering some basic questions on economics? I mean, I would like you to ask him, if you are blessed with that opportunity, which I doubt, to ask him just a few questions. What is his stand on fiscal deficit? Does he believe that the fiscal deficit must be brought down to below 3%?
Mr. Chidambaram, you've held very important portfolios. You've been Home Minister, you've been Finance Minister twice. Is there a portfolio or a job you wanted and you were disappointed that you couldn't get it?
Well, disappointed is not the word. I wanted a job.
Which was that?
Well, at that time they said, well, we want you in home, we want you in finance, so we're sorry we can't give you the job. It is not a matter of...
But which one were you interested in?
Well...
Oh, come on now.
Well, I don't think that's relevant now.
No, it is. It's people. Just a matter of interest. People would be very interested.
Well, suppose I say sports. Would you accept it?
Find it difficult. I know that you're a very keen sports person.
No. I'm a very keen sports lover. I follow virtually every sport on television. It gives me a chance not to watch news channels and watch only sports channels.
We'll make sure you watch news channels. No, but tell me, didn't it ever cross your mind that maybe you deserve a shot at the top job, Prime Minister of India?
No, not at all.
You were spoken of as...
Not at all. That's very kind.
Some months ago or a year ago, your name was being...
That's very kind of you. Not at all. I know my limits. I have no such aspiration. I know what my party wants. See, the top job must go to someone whom the party wants, whom the party warms up to. It was...
Why didn't the party warm up to you?
I am from a state, I have a limited domain, I've done specific jobs. I have not been in the party leadership or done party work. I've only done party work in the state. The party warms up to somebody. That's a matter of, let me say, you can't define why. The party warmed up to Indira Gandhi, the party warmed up to Rajiv Gandhi, the party warmed up to Sonia Gandhi, but she declined. And today it's quite clear to anyone in the party that the party has very warm feelings towards a young leader, Rahul Gandhi. Therefore, if the party comes to power, there is no doubt in my mind that the overwhelming sentiment in the party will be that Shri Rahul Gandhi should take over as Prime Minister. Now, what he will do is up to him.
One last question, sir. Does the fact that you're not contesting now mean that you will never contest an election again?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So you're just taking a sabbatical, is it?
I have said, I know my age today, I know the years that remain to me. I just want to do a few things which I've not been able to do. I have worked 16 to 18 hours every day over the last 10 years, holding two of the toughest portfolios under very, very difficult circumstances. Finance, home, and back to finance. Therefore, I just want time for myself.
You know, one last question. You know what people say about you? That Mr. Chidambaram has everything that matters. Perhaps a bit of better man management would have made him a lot more acceptable to people.
Why am I not acceptable?
Management.
I've won 7 elections in my constituency. I'm one of the handful of people who have not switched constituencies. I have won from a rural constituency. I've won every election but one that I contested there. If you think that ministers holding sensitive portfolios should be backslapping, pan chewing, or tea guzzling, I mean, you are living in a different age. We are living in a modern age now.
It's not my view.
We are living in a modern
Your
age.
fellow politicians.
Well, I can't. I'm sure they're right. I'm sure they're right. I'm sure they have reasons to be right. But each one has to live his life and each one has to be what he is. I can't pretend to be you, and you can't pretend to be me.
Mr. Chidambaram, thank you very much for
Thank
taking
you.
time out and speaking to us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.